The fire and the innocent smoke filled the sky of Zareth 5. Red fire danced across broken buildings. The ground shook with every explosion. Human soldier Corporal Jake Brenner ran through the ruins with his squad, his rifle tight in his hands. They were evacuating. The mission had failed. The alien forces had pushed harder than anyone expected. "Move. Fall back to the drop zone," shouted his commander through the radio. Jake followed the others. His boots pounded against the ground. They were almost at the extraction point when he heard it. A sound, not gunfire, not bombs, a small cry. Weak, scared. Jake stopped. "Brenner, what are you doing?" A voice snapped in his earpiece. He didn't answer. He turned around and walked slowly toward the sound. The air was hot and heavy with smoke. He passed a broken wall and stepped into the wreckage of a collapsed building. Ash floated like snow. Then he saw her, a small alien child. She had pale violet skin, long silver hair full of dust, and glowing blue eyes filled with tears. She was curled into a corner, shaking, holding a piece of torn cloth. Jake's heart stopped. She was from the enemy species, the Zerelians, the same ones who had killed dozens of his friends. But this one? She was just a child, no older than 6, maybe younger. She looked up at him, terrified. Jake raised his hand slowly. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. The girl made a small noise, backing away. Her legs were bleeding. A metal beam had fallen nearby, trapping her there. Jake looked around. His squad was gone. The extraction timer was ticking. He should leave. But he couldn't. With care, he knelt beside her. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, lowering his weapon. "I promise." The child looked at him. She didn't speak his language, but something in his voice made her stop shaking. Jake reached out and gently lifted the beam. It was heavy, but he pushed it aside. The girl whimpered in pain. As she tried to move, "Hold on, I'll carry you," he said. He wrapped her in his jacket, picked her up, and turned back toward the drop zone. Shots rang out in the distance. He ran. The child held tightly to his chest, her small arms around his neck. Behind them, alien soldiers moved through the ruins, but they didn't shoot at Jake. Not once. They saw the child in his arms. One of them shouted something in their own language, and the others stopped. Jake didn't understand what they said, but he knew one thing. They had let him go. Back at the human base, alarms were blaring. Ships were leaving. People were shouting orders. Jake reached the gate, still carrying the child. "Is that an alien?" barked a soldier. "She's hurt, a child." "I couldn't leave her," Jake replied. The medics looked unsure. "She needs help," Jake said firmly. "If you don't help her, I will." His commander walked up. "You disobeyed direct orders. I found her trapped under rubble. She's a kid. She's the enemy. She's innocent." There was silence. Then the medic stepped forward. "We'll treat her wounds, but she stays under watch." Jake sat beside the table as they cleaned her cuts. The child stared at him the whole time. Not afraid, not crying, just quiet. She reached out and touched his sleeve. "Zaya," she whispered. Jake frowned. "What?" "Zaya," she said again, pointing at herself. Her name. Jake gave a small smile. "Zaya. Okay." The commander pulled Jake aside. "You know what this means?" "What?" "The Zerelian High Matriarch, one of their war leaders, put a death mark on any human who harms their young. You saved one. They might see it as a bond." Jake stared at him. "What kind of bond?" Before the commander could answer, a transmission came through the speakers. A message. "This is Matriarch Lirvala of the Zerelian people. I seek my daughter. She was lost during the fire. A human has her. I ask for his presence. Alone." The camp went silent. Jake looked down at the girl, now sleeping peacefully beside him. What had he just walked into? Jake sat on a cold metal bench. Inside the medical tent, the little alien girl, Zaya, was sleeping in a soft blanket. Her breathing was calm now. Her small hand still held onto the sleeve of his uniform even in sleep. He didn't understand why he felt so protective. She was the enemy's child. But when he looked at her, all he saw was someone scared, hurt, and alone. The flap of the tent opened and 2 soldiers entered. Behind them was a tall human officer, Major Carson, with a tablet in hand. "Corporal Brenner," the major said. "You're to come with us." Jake stood up slowly. "What for?" "She's not just any alien child. She's the daughter of the High Matriarch Lirvala, one of the top leaders of the enemy race. She's asking to speak with you. Alone." Jake's eyes widened. "She's royalty?" Major Carson nodded. "And you saved her. Now her mother wants a word." Jake looked back at the girl. "What happens to her?" "She'll stay under protection. But depending on how this meeting goes." The major didn't finish his sentence. Jake took a breath and nodded. "Let's go." They brought him to the edge of the base where a tall white tent had been set up. Inside it was strangely quiet. Lanterns glowed with a warm green light. Alien symbols marked the walls. Jake entered alone. And there she stood, Lirvala, the matriarch. She was taller than he imagined, elegant, dressed in flowing robes that shimmered like stars. Her eyes were the same glowing blue as her daughter's. But they held fire, power, grief. She studied him with a silent intensity. "You," she said, her voice calm and clear. "You carried my child through fire." Jake stood tall, unsure how to respond. "I didn't know who she was, I just couldn't leave her there." "You saved her when your kind could have ignored her," Lirvala said, stepping closer. "Why?" Jake hesitated. "Because..." She was crying. She was alone. "She's just a kid. War or not, that's wrong." For a long moment, Lirvala was quiet. Then she nodded once. "In our culture," she said, "when a stranger protects the blood of a matriarch during deathfire, they become Zorith, life-bound protector. A bond not easily broken." Jake frowned. "Life-bound? Wait. What does that mean?" "It means," Lirvala said softly, "you are now part of her line. By ancient law, you are not just her guardian. You are family." Jake took a step back. "Family? I'm a soldier, a human. I didn't agree to this." "You did, the moment you chose her over escape." Jake didn't know what to say. He looked at her, at the pain in her eyes. He realized she wasn't just some alien commander. She was a mother, and mothers don't care about war when their child is in danger. "She called me something," Jake said. "Zaiya. Her name, right?" Lirvala gave a soft smile. "Yes. She trusted you." Jake rubbed the back of his neck. "So, what now?" "I will return soon to my people," Lirvala said. "But I will not leave without you." Jake blinked. "Excuse me?" "She will not sleep without holding your shirt. She does not eat unless you are near. The bond is strong. Too strong to break now." Jake looked down at his hands. This wasn't part of the mission. This wasn't supposed to happen. But deep inside, he didn't feel regret. Back at the human base, some soldiers watched Jake with mixed eyes. Some nodded with respect. Others muttered behind his back. Alien lover. Traitor. Hero. The child followed him everywhere now. She laughed when he walked, sat in his lap during meals, and sometimes just held his finger quietly. Each night Jake sat with her, reading from a small picture book he found in the base. He didn't understand her words. She didn't understand his. But somehow they understood each other. That night, as stars lit the sky, Jake sat outside the tent. Major Carson approached. "She really won't leave without you." Jake nodded. "She's just a kid. What would you do if it were your daughter?" Carson sighed. "I'd burn the world to keep her safe." Jake looked up at the sky. "That's what scares me. I think Learvala would do the same. Night fell over the human base on Zareth 5, but Jake couldn't sleep. Zaya was curled up beside him, one small hand gripping the edge of his jacket. Her silver hair glowed faintly in the dim light. Even in sleep, her brow creased with worry. She was still scared, still healing. Jake sat awake watching the stars through the thin tent wall. So much had changed in just a few days. He had come here as a soldier. Now, he was something else, something he didn't understand. Suddenly, a soft chime echoed at the base entrance. An alien ship hovered outside the camp's outer shield. Soldiers gathered, weapons ready, but no one fired. Then a single figure stepped down from the ship. She moved like flowing water, graceful, silent, and full of power. Matriarch Learvala had returned, but this time, she didn't come to talk. She came with ceremony. Jake stood in front of her as a wide circle of humans and aliens watched. Learvala walked toward him, wearing a deep black robe trimmed with gold symbols. In her hands, she held a strange, glowing crystal. "What is this?" Jake asked quietly. Learvala spoke in a firm but soft voice. In Zarelian tradition, when a warrior protects the blood of a matriarch, a ritual must be performed. Not just for honor, for connection, for soul marking. Jake looked confused. "I'm just a soldier. I didn't ask for this." "But you did act," she replied. "You chose to risk your life for one who was not your own. That is the highest vow in our law." Zaya, now awake and standing beside him, reached up and held his hand. Jake glanced down. Her eyes shimmered like stars. She smiled. He couldn't walk away now. "Okay," Jake whispered. "What do I have to do?" Learvala stepped forward and held the crystal between them. It floated, spinning slowly, then split into two halves. One moved toward her, the other toward Jake. The crystal glowed and burned. Jake winced as it touched his chest, leaving a mark, like a tattoo made of light. Learvala bore a similar mark. They looked at each other, not with hate, but not with warmth either. Just understanding the distance between them. Then Lyra spoke. "Can I call him Papa now?" she asked in a small voice. Sarala froze. Ethan blinked. Lyra tilted her head. "He saved me, he held me, he made the fire go away." Ethan scratched the back of his head. I mean, sure, if that makes you feel safe." Lyra beamed. She ran to him and hugged his arm tightly. Ethan sat frozen for a second, then slowly placed his other hand over hers. For the first time, Sarala's expression softened. "She's never spoken to another man that way," she said, quietly. "I'm not just another man," Ethan replied. "I'm the guy who ran through fire for her. Don't forget that." Sarala's eyes narrowed slightly. "Believe me, I never will." Just then the ship lights flickered. Ethan stood up instantly. "What was that?" Sarala also rose, looking around. Systems shouldn't be failing. Hologram appeared in the middle of the room. The AI voice spoke in calm tones. "Unidentified vessel approaching. No response to communication. Possible threat." Ethan's military instincts kicked in. "Where's it from?" Sarala walked toward the panel and tapped a few symbols. Her face went pale. "It's from Velaris, but it doesn't belong to our royal fleet." "Pirates?" Ethan asked. She shook her head. "Worse." "Who then?" Sarala turned slowly. "Someone from my past, who doesn't want me or Lyra alive." Ethan's hands tightened into fists. He looked down at Lyra still playing, completely unaware of the danger moving closer in space. He looked back at Sarala. "Then we better work together, because I'm not letting anyone take her." Sarala stepped closer, her voice quieter now. "If you protect her, I will stand beside you. Even if this bond is only duty, I won't let you fight alone." For the first time, they stood side by side, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as two protectors, bound by fire, and now shadowed by an enemy neither of them had yet faced. The stars outside the ship began to vanish, one by one, not because they were going out, but because something massive was blocking them. Ethan stood on the observation deck, staring at the silhouette of the unknown vessel. It wasn't a cargo ship. It wasn't a military cruiser. It was something different, dark, quiet, and watching. Behind him, Sarala entered with a slow, careful step. "I know that ship," she said softly. Ethan didn't look at her. "You want to tell me who it is?" She walked beside him, her silver robe brushing the floor. "His name is Lord Venak. He was once my betrothed, before I chose exile, before I chose freedom." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "So he's your ex-fiancé?" "He was chosen by the council to marry me and rule Velaris. I refused. They tried to force me, but I escaped with my daughter." Ethan turned to her now. "And he's the one who caused the disaster?" Sarala's voice tightened. "He always wanted control. When I ran, he lost his power. The collapse of Velaris was his revenge. He wanted to kill us both in the fire, but you ruined his plan." Ethan stepped away from the window. "So now he's here to finish the job." She nodded. "He won't stop until Lyra is gone. With her out of the way, he can claim the throne without question." "And what happens if he gets to her?" Sarala looked at him, her eyes cold. "He will not just kill her. He will erase her, burn her name from our records as if she never existed." Ethan clenched his fists. "Not on my watch." The ship's alarm blared suddenly. "Incoming message from hostile vessel." A hologram opened in the air. A tall figure appeared, humanoid, but armored in jet black and lined with glowing red veins. His face was sharp, cruel, and still. "Lord Venak." "Princess Sarala," he said in a smooth, mocking voice. "Running didn't save you. Marrying a human won't protect you. Give me the child and I may let you live." Sarala stood tall. "You'll never touch her." Venak smirked. "Then watch her die slowly, like your world did." The hologram vanished. The ship shook. "Shields at 60%, the AI reported. "Missiles incoming." Ethan ran to the console. "Can we jump to hyperspace?" Sarala tapped quickly on the alien interface. "No. He disabled our core field. We're trapped." Ethan growled under his breath. "Of course we are." Sarala looked at him. "There's one way out." "I'm listening. I still have access to the royal override codes. I can restart the shield field only for 60 seconds, just enough to launch an escape pod." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Escape pod? You mean get Lyra out?" "Yes. What about us?" Sarala looked away. "There's only one pod." Ethan's voice hardened. "You want to leave her alone out there?" "No," Sarala said. "You'll go with her." He stared at her. She continued. "You're the only one I trust to protect her. You're the only one she trusts." Ethan was silent. Then he slowly shook his head. "No deal," he said. "You're coming too. There's no time for... I don't care. You think I'm going to bond with you, become part of your family, and then leave you behind to die?" Sarala looked stunned. "You don't get it," Ethan said, stepping closer. "You're not just some alien princess anymore. You're her mother. That makes you part of this." She took a long breath. "Then we'll need a plan." The ship rumbled again. Sparks flew from the walls. Ethan grinned, just a little. "Now that sounds more like it." Together they turned toward the center control room. Lyra peeked from behind a wall, clutching her toy. Ethan knelt down and picked her up. "Stay close to me, kid," he said. Things are about to get loud. The, cold space outside seemed to grow darker, but inside the ship a new fire had started, and this time Ethan Voss wasn't running from it. He was going to light it himself. Red lights flashed across the control room. The ship groaned under another hit. Sparks burst from the walls. The shields were falling apart and the hull wouldn't last long. But Ethan didn't flinch. He stood over the command table, planning fast, thinking faster. Next to him, Princess Sarala's fingers flew across the glowing controls of the alien interface. Her calm voice cut through the alarms. Launching the escape pod now is risky. If Venak targets it, we lose everything. Ethan shook his head. No. He wants her alive. He'll never shoot the pod. He needs her to claim the throne. Then we use that against him, she said. They both turned as the doors slid open. Lyra stepped in. She looked tiny in the chaos. Her big glowing eyes locked onto Ethan. I'm scared, she whispered. Ethan knelt and picked her up in one arm. That's okay. I'm scared too, she smiled weakly. But you're strong. Sarala's eyes flickered with something soft. Ethan turned back to the console. How much time can you give us with the override code? 60 seconds, Sarala said. Enough to launch the pod and confuse his systems. I'll take her, Ethan said. You'll follow after. But Sarala shook her head. No. I will stay and guide the attack away. He's expecting you to protect Lyra. He's not expecting me to fight. Ethan's voice dropped. That's suicide. Sarala didn't answer. He stepped toward her. You think this bond is just a rule? You think I'm just a soldier with no heart? She finally looked at him. What are you saying? I'm saying I didn't run through fire for just your daughter. I did it because I couldn't stand the idea of someone innocent dying. Because of people like Venak. I'm not leaving either of you. Sarala stared at him. Something cracked in her face, something soft and real. Then a loud bang shook the entire ship. A red warning flashed. Boarding imminent. Venak was done playing. Ethan's military instincts returned. Get Lyra into the escape pod. Lock it from the inside. You and I will hold the main hall. Sarala nodded, then turned to her daughter. You must be brave, my light, she said. You must trust Ethan. He will keep you safe. Lyra hugged her tightly. Come with us, Mama. Sarala kissed her forehead. Soon. They placed Lyra in the pod. The small capsule glowed around her, humming with power. It was quiet. Too quiet. Outside, the ship shook again. Ethan sealed the pod. Shield window in 3, 2, 1. He hit the button. A flash of white light fired across the hallway as the pod launched into the stars. Safe. For now. But the hallway behind them exploded. Shadowy armored figures poured into the ship, Venak's personal soldiers. Ethan raised his plasma rifle. Sarala raised her wrist. Her weapon was elegant, glowing, sharp. They stood shoulder to shoulder, one human, one alien, protecting one child, with one heart. The first wave of attackers came. Ethan moved fast, blasting 2 before they reached the floor. Sarala sliced through another with a spinning arc of light. Their weapons were different, but their rhythm was perfect. Back to back they fought. One enemy fell, then 2, then 5. But there were more. Sarala was hit in the side. She dropped to one knee. Ethan grabbed her arm, shielding her with his body. A blast grazed his shoulder. He gritted his teeth. You okay? She looked up, breathing hard. You're still protecting me. I said I wouldn't leave you behind. She stared at him as the enemy regrouped. Then she whispered, Then I will protect you too. Together they rose again. More soldiers came, and this time, Sarala used her royal override. She slammed her hand onto a glowing panel beside the wall. The emergency doors closed behind them, trapping the enemies inside a sealed hall. She looked at Ethan. That bought us time, but not much. Ethan coughed, his arm bleeding. Still breathing. Let's find Lyra. We finish this. Together. She nodded. Together. And for the first time since the bonding ceremony began, they weren't just allies, they were family. Smoke filled the narrow corridors of the ship. Ethan Voss limped beside Sarala, his shoulder bleeding, his grip on the plasma rifle tight. Sarala's robe was torn, her side bruised. Still, her eyes were sharp, focused. They had fought wave after wave of Venak's soldiers. Each time they stood together, and each time the bond between them grew stronger, though neither said it. Lyra's escape pod should have reached the Earthship by now, Ethan said between breaths. Sarala nodded. If Venak didn't intercept it. Ethan stopped walking. Don't say that. I'm being honest. He looked at her face hard. She'll make it. She has to. They turned a corner and froze. Venak stood at the end of the hallway, alone. His black armor shimmered in the red emergency lights. Behind him, the command bridge was locked down, guarded by a force field. He smiled. So, the human still stands, Venak said, voice cold and amused. And my runaway princess still plays war. Ethan raised his rifle. Venak didn't flinch. Do you think you can stop me with that toy? You're bleeding. She's weak. This is over. Sarala stepped forward. It is, but not the way you think. She lifted her hand and entered a series of codes into the nearby wall panel. Venak raised an eyebrow. What are you doing? Ethan looked around. Sarala, what is this? She didn't answer immediately. Then the hallway lights turned blue. The air shifted. She whispered, This ship was once part of the royal fleet. It still has an ancient power core, a last resort defense. I just activated it. Vanak's smile dropped. No, he said, stepping forward. You wouldn't dare. I would, she said. I have nothing to lose if Lyra's dead, and if she lives, then I've already won. Ethan grabbed her arm. Are you insane? That core will take us with it. I know, she whispered. Vanak charged. Ethan fired, hitting Vanak's shoulder. Sparks flew. Vanak screamed and fell. Sarala ran forward and kicked him back. Her blade sliced across his leg. Vanak swung at her, catching her face. Blood spilled. She dropped. Ethan tackled Vanak from behind. They wrestled, human and alien, soldier and tyrant. Ethan roared as he slammed Vanak into the wall. The villain tried to fight back, but his suit was failing. One final punch, and Vanak went down. Breathing, heavy, Ethan stood over him. You lose, he growled. Sarala got to her knees. Ethan, the countdown is active. The ship will overload. He helped her up. Then we run. She smiled faintly through blood. To where? Suddenly, his communicator crackled. Earth command to Ethan Voss. Do you copy? We tracked the escape pod. We're moving to intercept your position. Hang on. Ethan grinned. They found her and us. Sarala closed her eyes in relief. Lyra, she's safe. Ethan held her shoulders. And you will be too. I'm not letting you die on this cursed ship. They raced toward the outer airlock. Fire followed them. The lights flickered. The hallway collapsed behind. As they reached the door, a dropship hovered outside. A bright beam locked onto them. Jump! Ethan shouted. Sarala hesitated. Ethan grabbed her hand. I told you, I'm with you, no matter what. She looked into his eyes. Even if the law didn't bind us? I don't care about the law anymore, he said. I care about you. Her breath caught. Then they jumped, together into the light. The moment they landed, the ship behind them exploded. Flames swallowed the darkness. Pieces flew into space. But they were safe. Inside the dropship, Lyra ran to them. Papa! Mama! Ethan dropped his rifle and caught her in his arms. Sarala joined them, holding both close. Ethan looked at Sarala, and for the first time, she smiled with warmth. No rules. No law. Just feeling. And in the middle of war, a spark of something new had begun to burn. 1 week later, the Great Council of Velaris gathered in orbit over Earth. 12 alien leaders stood in a perfect circle aboard the Silver Star Dome, each wearing robes that shimmered like galaxies. The room was silent, filled with power, history, and judgment. At the center stood Ethan Voss. His Earth military uniform was patched and worn, but he stood straight, hands behind his back. His eyes were sharp, calm, steady. Beside him stood Sarala, dressed in royal white with streaks of gold, symbols of her noble blood and her new bond. In her arms, little Lyra clung to both of them. One of the council elders finally spoke. "You are not Valerian. You are not royal. You are human," he said to Ethan. "And yet you defied death. You saved the heir. You fought Lord Venak. You destroyed a traitor." He paused. "And now you stand before us as one of our own." Another elder leaned forward. "You accepted the bond under law. But what of the heart? Do you choose this union with your will, not just your duty?" Ethan glanced at Sarala. She did not look at him. She was staring straight ahead, as proud and strong as ever, but he didn't need her eyes to answer. "I do," Ethan said. "I chose them both, not because of law, but because I couldn't walk away, and I never will." Gasps rippled through the council. Even Sarala blinked. She turned to him, stunned. Then Lyra giggled and whispered, "He means it, Mama." The head counselor raised his staff. "Then the bond is no longer a law, it is real. Earth and Valeris are joined not by treaty, but by family." Lights burst around the dome as the crowd outside cheered. 1,000 voices, alien and human, celebrated the beginning of something new. Peace, honor, and a bond that no law could ever force. Later that night, in a quiet room aboard the Star Dome, Ethan sat alone on a balcony. He looked up at the stars. So many of them, so far from where he started. Footsteps approached behind him. Sarala stepped out, her hair loose for the first time. "You didn't have to say what you did," she said softly. Ethan smiled. "I meant every word." She sat beside him. "I never trusted humans before," she admitted. "You were wild, strange, too emotional." "And now?" he asked. She looked at him, her voice like a whisper. "Now I see that your emotions are your strength." They sat in silence for a while. Then she reached for his hand. Slowly. Carefully. And he didn't pull away. "I never thought I would love again," she said. "But you burned through the fear. You carried my child through fire. You stood beside me when even my own people would not." Ethan didn't speak. He simply held her hand tighter. Inside, Lyra slept peacefully. For the first time in her life, she was safe. Not because of titles or blood, but because of love. A human soldier, an alien princess, and a child who brought them together. They had no crown, no throne, but they had something stronger. A family. And in the dark, starry sky of two worlds, and that was enough.